All right, you've done everything right. You filled out your living will, named your healthcare agent, and filed everything properly. But then an emergency happens and you're rushed to a hospital affiliated with a religious organization. The hospital's policies might conflict with what you wrote in your living will. Your family is there, holding your paperwork, wondering if your wishes will be honored.
Or imagine this scenario. You're in the ICU after an emergency, without written documentation clearly stating who your designated support person is. The hospital staff might not know who to include in your healthcare decisions, or who to give critical medical updates to, especially if you have a non-traditional family structure.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Thoughtful Planning. I'm Honey.
Hi, and I'm Santiago. We're here to talk to you today about addendums, additional documents that can address specific situations like those that are in your basic living will that might not be covered in extreme detail.
So just a quick note on terminology. In Texas, the living will is officially called the Directive to Physicians in Family or Surrogates, but we'll call it living will for short today.
Okay, so our usual disclaimer, we're not attorneys, we're not financial advisors or medical professionals. Everything we share today is for educational purposes only. Since we're in Texas, we're going to be focusing on Texas laws and forms. If you're in another state, research your own state's requirements.
For complex situations or legal advice, consult an estate planning attorney. The state of Texas has a link to legal aid organizations, which we'll share in the show notes.
So here's our central question for this episode. What additional documents might strengthen your living will and help ensure your specific wishes are understood? We'll come back to this at the end.
So an addendum is an additional document you attach to your living will that provides more detail about your wishes. The Texas Living Will form has a section for additional requests where you can list particular treatments you do or do not want in specific circumstances. It's also where you can reference any addendums you've created.
Yes. So in our last episode, we talked about keeping your living will clear, concise, and a quick-to-read document in case of an emergency. The addendums let you dive a little bit deeper and get into that deeper context about your values and preferences.
And here's something important to be aware of. These addendums appear to be advisory rather than strictly binding. So your living will itself is the controlling legal document. So you'll want to confirm with an estate attorney exactly what weight they carry in your state. And the addendums we're sharing today, they're not any particular state specific. They are addendums we found from the Compassion and Choices website.
We did a little bit of research before we did this, and we're going to suggest that for each of your addendums, you include a clear heading. For example, addendum to directive to physicians and family or surrogates. Title, whatever your addendum topic is, and state in there, this document is intended to read together with my directive to physicians and family or surrogates under Texas Health and Safety Code Chapter 166 or whatever your home state directive is.
So if you're printing and handwriting your addendums, we recommend using blue ink. Do not sign them yet. Wait until our next episode when we walk through completing your living will. We'll cover witness requirements, notarization, and signing everything together.
So let's dive a little bit deeper and talk about some of those specific addendums that you might want. These aren't required for everyone. It's just something you need to take into consideration for the ones that are relevant to your current situation. In addition, the addendums we're going to be sharing with you might not be the only ones available in your state or to you. And as time goes on, you can always add those later.
Remember the critical conditions planning guide from Emory from our last episode? So if you went through that, then you can reference pages 15 through 24. That's called the individual worksheet, where you can actually fill that out, write your name down, and select all your choices. And that portion can serve as an addendum. You'll just add the heading that Santiago mentioned earlier with all those technical words, which we'll also include in the show notes for help.
There's also an alternative form called Compassion and Choices, free toolkit, and this is called My End of Life Decisions. It's available currently in English and Spanish and includes a form that's called My Particular Wishes for Therapies that Could Sustain Life. Use whichever of these tools that we're talking about. Make sure that they really work for you.
Right. And also there's the Dementia Directive. It outlines your care wishes specifically if you develop dementia. We covered this in episode 32, and we'll include a link in the show notes. So we won't go deep today on the dementia directives.
Yeah. So Compassion and Choices has a dementia values and priorities tool in their toolkit that's also pretty friendly to use.
And now let's talk about the Sectarian Healthcare Directive, an addendum for situations where you might be admitted to a healthcare institution whose religious or moral policies could potentially conflict with your living will.
So this particular directive states that your admission does not constitute implied consent for procedures that conflict with your directives. It includes instructions for transfer to another facility that might fulfill your wishes if needed.
And there's a template in the Compassion and Choices toolkit for you to reference.
So I think that's pretty important. If you're in a hospital that's not going to follow your wishes, you need to figure out how to get someplace that will. So this will help you out. So the next and final thing we'd like to talk about today is the hospitalization visit authorization. This addendum names the specific people that you want as your designated visitors and or support people. It's particularly helpful if you're unconscious or you can't speak when you arrive at the hospital.
So this can matter for people in non-traditional family structures. For example, the LGBTQ plus community, or those with close friends they consider family, or people estranged from their biological relatives.
Yeah. So I could see where, like for us, with our daughter living in a different state, she does have family around, but she doesn't have us there or her brother. So her fiance or the family that are there could really help her out with this. So the language typically says, if you need hospitalization or long-term care, the following persons are my designated support people and should be granted visitation privileges. Then you list the names and their contact information. There's a template in the Compassionate and Choices toolkit.
So you might be wondering, if doctors need information fast, how do pages of addendums help?
Well, based on what we've learned from an estate attorney webinar, in an emergency, the medical staff is going to first look at that main living will document for quick, clear directives. After the immediate crisis or when they're making long-term care decisions, then they may reference the addendums for additional guidance to make sure that your wishes are followed.
So let's circle back to the essential question. What additional documents might strengthen your living will? We covered 4 today. The first one is mainly about the personal values and care preferences, and you can find that in the Critical Conditions Planning Guide with the Emory Institute that we referenced in the last episode, or the Compassion and Choices Advanced Planning Guide, which I think it's cool because this one also is available in Spanish. And then the second one is the Dementia Directive. The third one is the Sectarian Healthcare Directive. The fourth one is the Hospital Visitation Authorization. And again, all of these are actually in that Compassion and Choices planning guide and available to you in English and Spanish.
I think that visitation authorization is so important, especially with family dynamics the way they are today. We want to ensure that the people we want there have the permission to come and visit us in case something happens. So, before our next episode, select the documents that relate to your specific situation. Complete them thoughtfully and add the proper heading as I described earlier. And it'll be in the show notes also. Remember, if you're using handwriting, use blue ink and don't sign anything quite yet.
And if you have complicated family situations, complex medical conditions, or significant assets to coordinate, you'll want to consult an estate planning attorney. Some attorneys offer reduced cost initial consultations, and Texas legal aid resources will be included in the show notes.
And research your specific state. They probably have legal aid resources that you can use at a reduced cost also. So, that's a lot.
Yep.
So in our next episode, we're going to actually walk you through the Texas Living Will form itself. That's when we'll cover the witness requirements, notarization requirements, and the importance of signing everything together.
If you have any questions, you can email us at info@legacytoolkit.com.
If you find this episode was helpful, share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Thoughtful Planning on YouTube and or follow us on your favorite platform for podcasts.
Until next time, remember every chapter you write today shapes your legacy tomorrow. Thank you for joining us at Thoughtful Planning.